Welcome to the Journey Podcast, where we talk freight, sales, tech, the market, and everything in between. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. Let's get it. Hello and welcome to the Journey Podcast. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. And today I'm joined by Tom Curee, president at Curee. Tom, how's it going?
Great, Will. How are you, my friend?
Excellent, man. It's really, really good to see you. I know your background, but I would love if you wouldn't mind just a quick 10,000 foot overview of what you've been up to in your career up to this point. And then we'll jam about best sales practices and kind of hear your approach.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I've been in freight for 20 years. I've kind of worked the majority of that time on the brokerage or the asset side of the business. So it's been good. When I was on the asset side, I worked for a company that was owned by a produce distributor. So kind of involved in both the asset and the shipper side, as well as the brokerage side. And then back in 2023, me and my good friend Prasad Galopoli, who had founded Trucker Tools, really got focused on fixing appointment scheduling with Curee. And so we've been building this thing for the last 3 years. It's been incredible. Some of the best customers and experiences that we've had. It's always going to bring its own fair share of challenges, right? As you're learning something new in a new space. But been really, really fortunate that this industry has been so really welcoming. Even from my earliest days. I mean, when I started in the brokerage space, I was only 19 years old.
Man.
And so it was like, I was a young kid. Luckily, I was already losing my hair, so everyone thought I was older than I was. You know what I mean? But been in just an incredible industry with a lot of great leaders that I'm fortunate enough now to call friends that I've been able to be alongside for the last 20 years. And so that's a little background on me. I've got 4 kids, man. Most people who follow my LinkedIn stuff see, me and my wife and my kids going out and doing crazy stuff, mainly because I want them to experience all the things that we get to experience. And so a lot of people in the industry have actually met my kids because they've been at industry events and kind of getting to know the space. And I'm making sure that they learn, especially as my oldest starts driving, that she learns that we respect those big trucks on the road, right? And help set the tone for them.
I love it, man. So your first job in freight at 19, what were you doing?
I actually worked at TQL. It's where I cut my teeth.
Gosh. Nice.
So I was a Cincinnati boy, and I started off. It's actually a pretty interesting story. My wife actually started TQL before I did. And so she was working back then. It was a job called customer service. But back then what it meant is she would answer calls and just transfer them. That's all she did. Answer and transfer. They didn't have like a phone, like dial. So she would take like 1,000 calls a day. And she started working there. And, after a couple of weeks of being there, she came home and she was like, man, I don't really know what all happens here, Tom, but I think you would love this business. And at that point, it was in the handbook that spouses couldn't work together. And they lifted that, I think, in April of 2006. And in May 2006, I started. And so I started on the floor. First thing I did was schedule appointments, right? Started scheduling appointments, start talking to trucks, and literally that is part of that whole thing for me around appointments. It's like, man, 20 years ago, we were doing it the same way that most people are doing it now. So that was crazy to me.
Yeah.
But started on the floor there and learned the business and had a great run there. Learned a ton about the industry. And then as careers go, kind of eventually stretch out a little bit, try some new things, get your feet wet. I was young enough that I didn't even know what the heck I was doing yet. And so before I knew it, I was like, no, this is where I want to be. I want to be in this industry. I want to be a part of it. So.
Totally. Wow. That's a really cool story. It's funny that you started scheduling appointments and now the business that you all are building is around finding a way to do that more efficiently.
Yeah. I'll often say, well, you ever meet a guy who like learns how to do one thing and decides to do it for the rest of his life? Like that's what's happening to me, man. Like
yes.
There's the first thing you learn to do and you're like, it's all I talk about now. So
100%. So we were chatting a little bit before we kicked off about sales and sales processes. So, you've sold to a lot of different buying parties. You've sold to shippers. You've sold to drivers. You have now sold to executives in freight and everything in between, right? Let's break that down, man. What's different about each of those parties? And I'm going to go a layer deeper after that and say, specifically in freight tech, what's different selling freight tech versus the other? So feel free to start wherever you feel.
Yeah. So I think, look, sales is an interesting thing, man, because I I think people view sales in a lot of different ways. In my world, my nature as a person is I just want to help people. Like I mean, as a leader, I want to help my team, right? I want to help them grow. I want them to experience the successes that they want to experience. As a father, right? I want my kids to learn and grow, and I want them to be able to trust me to help them in different things with my wife, like in my relationships. And so for me in sales, it's no different. Every single buying party that you engage with, you have to be able to actually support and serve a need that they have. And I think a lot of times, salespeople can be guilty of doing the whole square peg round hole thing and really trying to make something fit and trying to make promises that maybe are going to be really difficult to deliver on. And so for every one of these buying patterns, buying individuals, it becomes, can I actually help them? If I can't help them, they don't need to talk to me. I mean, it's nice that they want to talk. It's nice that I have a good relationship with them. But at the end of the day, they don't need what I'm doing, and I don't need to try to sell them, right? And I think a lot of people get caught up in the idea of, well, they're talking to me and they'll take my call and they'll this, that, and the other, but they're not actually a true buyer who you can help. And so in every single one of these, I think the key for me is, can you actually help this person? And then what is driving them, right? What are the KPIs that they're being measured at? What are their own goals? And then how do you align with those? I think it's really challenging for people who try to sell in an environment without understanding the goals of the buyers. And so in my world, if I'm selling to a driver, if I'm selling a load to a driver and they're trying to get home, right? Well, the need that they need is they need a load that's going to take them to a specific location or within a certain amount of radius of that location, right?
Yeah.
That's their need. If I can't fit that need, I'm not the salesperson for them. I'm not the person that they need to talk to, right? And being able to recognize that is really important. But if I'm selling now, right, in this freight tech world, I get often asked the question of, well, how is it since you switched to the dark side, right? You're on the dark side now.
You and me both, brother.
But you know what, man? Like, what's funny is if I was in freight tech and then I switched to being a broker or a dispatcher or something, they would say the same thing. Like, how is it on the dark side? Tell me how it is over there, right? Like,
right.
But for me, it really is, do you want to help people or do you want to help yourself? I think the salespeople who develop a reputation for wanting to help themselves, they're going to find it very, very difficult to be able to sell and service the industry. In our world, I think we've been really fortunate that myself and really our entire organization is so wrapped up in the idea of how can I serve and how can I help you? But then also being willing to recognize the scenarios where I'm not what you need right now. I'm not the solution that you're looking for, and being honest enough with people to be able to look at them and say, this isn't the right fit for you right now. And then offer them solutions that they should maybe be considering.
I had a conversation yesterday with a new opportunity. It was an inbound opportunity through our website. Someone I've never met, really cool customer, great organization. And we start getting down to the nitty gritty of what they're looking for and services we provide. And we're probably 18 minutes in and whatnot. I'm like, we're probably not the right fit for what you all are looking to do, but we're still going to develop a relationship. I might be able to make an introduction. Shoot, their business might change in 4 years. Our business might change in 4 years, but it is important to be transparent with people because I think they respect that. And at the end of the day, to your point, you want to see people win. You want to help them. We may not be the team or the party or the service to help you. And so that's fine.
Yeah, we get asked the question all the time, and it's a flattering question. Our customers or our potential customers will ask us, well, what's next? What do you build next, right? You got this appointment thing going. You guys are firing all these appointments. You got all these customers. Like, what are you building next? Or what's the next problem that you're going to solve? And we've been very, very clear to the industry. We're appointments. That's all we are. That's all we're ever going to be. It's all we want to be because of the complexity that exists in that problem. Early days, when we would say that, people would be like, man, I'm looking for an AI provider that'll do all of the things that I want. And I have no problem saying, I'm not your person. And let me tell you why I'm not your person. And let me give you a little background on our decision of why we're not going to be that person. And we have seen a lot of those customers who once said, I want someone that does it all, come back and say, we found out we actually need someone who is a specialist in this problem because scalability becomes a challenge, right? And so the conversations we have today are more so when we share that, they are like, I really respect that you're willing to tell me no, because everyone else keeps telling me yes. No matter what I ask them, they'll say yes. And our approach is, let's just be honest with people. This is what we do. We know what we can do. We know how we can do it. We know how to do it really, really well. That's why we are the experts in the space. And so let's just be honest with people about that. And if they don't like that, that's fine. There's
Totally fine.
There's other places that they can try to do those types of things. That's perfectly fine. But for us, we're going to be true to who we are as an organization and the customer base who expects that from us.
Without a doubt, man. And I think it creates a ton of loyalty. You know, that last point you just made, the customer base that expects that from you, this is what they're coming to you for, right? They're going to be very loyal. It's really hard for someone to switch from a provider that they trust and they know that this is what you do. It's you're a subject matter expert in that. You don't want to be a mile wide and an inch deep. You want to be very, very thorough with the service that you provide. So I love that perspective. So, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say like that. For me, I think in the sales process, it's really easy for people to get caught up in committing to a lot of different things. And I think when you can commit, like when I was training brokers selling in the space, I would really try to tell them, become an expert in an area, right? Like don't try to say I can do I can do everything you would ever want. Don't be that person, because it doesn't allow you to really focus in and actually understand an industry. I mean, I remember talking to one young broker. He was trying to get his feet wet. He was trying to figure things out. And I looked at his customer base and who he was trying to sell to. It was all over the place. And I said, what do you know? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, no, what do you know as a person? Like, what are the things that you know? What are the things that you care about? What are the things that you're interested in? He started rattling off these things. And I said, why don't you find industries or products that are associated with things that you know, right? People don't come to me to talk about golf. I'm not a golfer. I got nothing. Okay. But if someone wants to start talking to me about splitting wood, I'm in, man. I'm like, what kind of axe you got? What maul you using? You know, I'm all in, right? As a salesperson, you gotta be passionate about the things that you're doing. And so even if you're a broker who's selling to a specific customer base or a carrier who's looking at a specific type of freight, right? Like there's a lot of value of selling into a market that you actually care about or you have interest in, because when you talk about it, you can talk about it with experience and knowledge and care that is completely different than trying to sell to something that, I don't really understand their business. I don't know what they do. Take that experience that you have, that knowledge that you have and use it, right? Use it well.
Without a doubt, man. So I want to dive into what you think is different in your world today, selling to freight brokerage execs, different parties, but specifically selling technology versus a service. How's that different for you? How do you approach sales differently today?
Yeah. So I think, our approach is, and this is something I've always encouraged our team, we have to understand the problem more than the solution. And that might sound like a bad philosophy when you're trying to sell a solution, right? Like at the end of the day, we do have a platform, a system, right, that someone wants to get. But you don't build trust because you have a system. You build trust because you have experience and understanding. When we go and we're working with a team, a lot of times the first conversations we have are at the C level, right? CEO, COO, CTO, whatever other C letter words we can come up with, right? That's typically where we're starting these conversations. And at the end of that first call, my ask is almost always the same. How soon can I get on the phone with your schedulers? Like in our world, the sooner we can get close to the problem, the better, right? And I think a lot of times you want to stay up here because you're like, okay, I've got their ear, I've got their interest. They're going to be the one signing the contract. Like this is the right people to talk to. But really, when it comes down to it, in our world, the buy-in and the support from the people on the floor is what matters. That's what drives success. Not just for them as an organization, but for us as an organization. We see that in the way that we like to engage is if I get trust from the scheduling team, right? Like I would often say, give me Donna or John, who have been scheduling with you for 20 years, who doesn't want to try anything new, who doesn't like new technologies. Let me talk to them. And that approach is sometimes it's jarring and shocking for people when they're like, no, you don't want to talk to them because if you talk to them, they're not going to like this. They're going to be blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, that's why I want to talk to them. Right. I always say the loudest critic that you have is going to be my best person to work with, because if I win them over, I've won everybody over.
Totally.
It's the old Life Zero commercial. Mikey likes it. Like if Mikey likes it, like everyone's going to like this, right? And so our approach is even though a lot of times the decisions like to be made at a higher level, our approach is get us to the end users. Because if we build end user trust, that changes the game for us. And so I think our approach is a little bit different just because that switch over into the tech side, we actually don't typically sell to the technology teams because it's really an operations project. It's not a tech project. And so we don't believe in long implementation cycles and integrations and all that kind of nonsense. We're able to see things go really, really quick because if operations is bought in, then the project will drive itself.
Totally. One of the things I think people likely miss during freight tech sales and implementation, I've dealt with this now selling in a completely different world than moving freight, is your point that you do need executive buy-in. But if the team that needs to use it isn't bought in, even if you get executive buy-in, they will churn. You can get the contract signed and Tom, this is fantastic. Our team's gonna love it and we'll sign up, and then no one uses it. That next step where you're in the weeds with the team that actually has to use the tool, whether this is during contracting or during implementation or whatever it might be, that's where the rubber meets the road. Because if the users don't use it and if they're not bought in, forget about it. This thing is gone.
Well, and I think the thing you learn from that process is, and not too long ago, maybe last week, I was on a call with a potential client and had that previous conversation that said, get your schedulers in a room. Let me talk to your schedulers. And when we had the schedulers in the room, I started talking about, they started talking about specific locations that they have to schedule with. And I said, hey, when you schedule this location, do you have to deal with this, 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 and this? And they literally turned and looked at each other like, these people know what the heck they're talking about. That is the moment that trust is built, right? And sales is about building trust. Operations is about keeping that trust, right? You gotta keep that trust. Back in the day when I was with the team over at Kingsgate, we would always say sales is promise makers, operations is promise keepers, right? Like you got to help us keep those promises, right? And so in our world, that's kind of what we do. And building that trust early on as someone who understands not just the idea of scheduling, but the full end process, how it impacts shippers, why your shippers care about it. Because what we see happen there is we have been a part of the sales process for some of our customers because the customers are like, hey, I want this shipper to know what we're doing with Q'd and why this matters to them. And so we've engaged in those conversations and worked with those shippers as a result of that. And so, I think the ability to be very, very collaborative through that process is important, but really it's that foundation level of how do you build trust at all levels, not just at the top level, but how are you building trust with the end users that you're going to depend on to actually make sure that this is successful.
I can only imagine for your best customers how much using the ability to find and manage the right appointments effectively, because that completely changes freight. If I have a load that is supposed to be a 1-day transit and it is now a 2 or 3-day transit, or you get really, really bad early or late times, you can go on and on about it. It completely changes your ability to buy and find the right carrier partners.
Freight.
I was just saying, if I'm on the brokerage side of that, man, I'm using that to my advantage all day because it helps on the ops side to understand how to execute properly. And that's where all the money is made in the execution.
Well, think about it. In freight, man, like there's only a few levers that you actually have the ability to pull that impacts the margin of a shipment. Right? Like customer sends you a load today, right? It's from Dallas to Chicago. And you look at it and you're like, I really don't want to pick this up out of Dallas. You can't call a customer and say, hey, is there any way I could pick this up out of Phoenix? It'd be really great.
Phoenix? You got any Phoenix to Chicago for me?
Right, exactly. You can't do that, right? And you can't, you're not necessarily going to change the rates. A lot of the rates are going to be dictated by what happens in the market. But when you get that shipment, one of the few things that you actually have influence on that can impact margin is the appointment. And what's wild is we've done the littlest amount of work when it comes to how do we handle appointments in our industry. I mean, I like to say 5-6 years ago, as an industry, we were like, we figured out how to fix appointment scheduling. We're going to just offshore it. We're going to have someone, somewhere else is going to schedule these appointments so we don't have to do it. But it is one of the few levers that impact margin or profitability or driver satisfaction or your customer's ability to actually recognize revenue off the dock, right? Customers at the end of the month, what are they trying to do? They're trying to get off my dock as fast as possible. Why? Because they want to recognize revenue as soon as it leaves their dock. Well, in our world, that's what we do, right? Like we want to make sure that we secure those slots as soon as they become available, because the way that it impacts your customer's business, your shipper's business, if you can have an influence on that, you're a partner that's not going to go away, right? They're going to say, hey, this person, ABC carrier, whoever it might be, we can't let go of that carrier because they have fixed this problem at this facility that we were experiencing all these OTIF penalties or all these fines or whatever it is. It was gone because they finally fixed the appointment side of that. And that is where you actually really take this thing to the next level for the way that our customers, it's more than just automating the process, right? Automating the process is, yeah, sure, that's table stakes, but like bringing an actual impact back to your customer base, that's where it matters.
I want to attack that a little bit because I think it is a very nuanced, high level sales philosophy that new people may miss and veterans may miss it as well. What you just said there is, if I can figure out how to solve the problem of my customer, I will be successful. And with the Walmart example, OTIF scores or whatever variation of that it may be, if we solve that problem for that customer, they are going to continue to work with us. They're going to want to give us more and more business because they see us as a better partner. In sales, typically, you got to do a lot of fact finding and you got to pay your dues to understand, I'm selling to Tom, but how does Tom succeed, right?
Yeah.
The people that are expecting Tom to do whatever it is they expect him to do, how does he win? How would you advise a younger version of yourself or someone else to say, hey, you need to learn, or how can they learn what their end users or their end users need to succeed? Because I think that's a massive a sales tip.
I think a lot of people, I would always tell salespeople, you got to get really comfortable with the dance is what I would often say, right? Like when you get into a conversation, you get into as a courtship, like there's some back and forth that has to happen here. And the more confident and comfortable you can be in learning, the easier it is for them to engage in that process, right? It's not uncommon for me to be in a conversation with someone and be like, hey, I'm going to ask you a really stupid question. How does this impact your customer? Like does it impact your customer, right? The knowledge and that you can gain from that question, like when they respond, they're not going to say, I'm not going to answer that question. No, they're going to answer that question. There's an experience tied to that. There's something that's happened to them. And I think a lot of times people want to ask the same trite questions, the same things that you always hear. But I think the best salespeople are great questioners. Like they're curious. I always say that's why my last name's Curee, because I'm curious. Like that's the way it's supposed to be. Like I'm always like, well, is that the best way to do it? Is there a different thing we should do? How could we maybe do it? Like, and as a salesperson, I think the more curious you become, it doesn't become offensive to ask those questions. It is the nature of who you are. I'm not trying to figure out something so I can figure out how to twist it to my advantage. I'm trying to figure something out because I'm naturally curious about that. But then once I understand it, maybe there is something I can do with that. Maybe there is something that brings more benefit to the customer as a result of understanding that. And I think the more you're willing to ask those questions, like almost at the end of every demo, especially with scheduling teams, I ask the same question, right? You get the end and you're like, oh, is there any questions or anything I didn't talk about you wanted to hear about, blah, 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 all that kind of nonsense. I typically ask the question and I say, okay, here's your chance. Tell me my baby's ugly. Tell me why this won't work for you. Well, that brings a completely different conversation up, right? And so I think for salespeople, you just have to become good at asking questions. And that really, to me, stems from being curious. Now, if you're selling something that you're not passionate about, you can't find passion in yourself. You need to go sell something different.
Yeah, like forget about it. It's a wrap.
Just switch. It's not gonna happen, right?
It's a wrap.
Yeah, I would be the worst golf club salesman, right? Like I said, I don't do golf. What am I going to do? You can hit it really hard with this one. I don't know, right? Like I'm useless. But if you can find something that you actually are passionate about and you feel like you're truly helping people, it becomes easier to ask those questions because you naturally are curious and trying to figure out, how does their business work? And I think building that rapport and building a level of trust, man, because I think a lot of people in the sales world, they get they get caught up on trying to create an image or a persona that the other person might connect with. And I would often say, and I've said it to my team, like, you don't need to sell it the way that I sell it. You need to find your own tone, your own conversation, the way that you like to talk with people, because authenticity sells way better than anything else. And so when I show up with a hat and the beard and all the old crap from Cracker Barrel, people were like, this fits. This totally makes sense. It's completely authentic. And I think that matters in the world of sales that we're in, is that authenticity is a big part of being able to be effective.
Man, there's so many really good nuggets. I'm going to try to summarize a couple and then share some points that have helped me in my career as well. Number one, I'm stealing. Do you tell me why my baby is ugly and why this won't work? I'll be using that on a call today without a doubt. So I love that. The second thing is understanding how to be authentic in who you are as an individual. And actually, this may seem counterintuitive to people that are newer in sales, but I've found more success selling to executives being myself than I ever did trying to conform to what I felt I needed to be in the box. In all regards. I have earrings. I wear them. I've had my ears pierced. I was 18. I remember my first job out of college. I worked at Kimberly-Clark. I would like never wear them and want to just like fit into this thing. I was like, man, like, I don't know if you don't want to do business with me because like I've had my ears pierced since I was 18. Like, we're probably just never really going to be good partners. And then as I became more comfortable with like myself and who I am, and I do know what I'm talking about, the opportunities just, you knock them down. One by one. But it took a career's worth of time to figure that out. This was not me at 18. And I found that executives actually respond better because I think they know that's who they're getting. They're like, I'm getting Tom. Like, I'm not getting like the corporate wash Tom. Like, I'm getting Tom that's going to show up at 9 p.m. on a Friday if I need something, or he's going to be there Monday early. Like, I'm getting Tom. And it changes the game a ton.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've heard it 100 times, right? Like, people buy from people, man. And I mean, you have to be solving a problem for them, right? Yeah, they don't just buy stuff to randomly buy stuff. But like, if you're solving a problem for them and you think about, if you're looking at two products that are relatively similar or maybe could solve the same problem, but the person that is coming to you is someone that you feel like is being incredibly authentic with you and honest, you're going to buy from that person. 100%. Right? Like, I mean, you kind of mentioned it in your own world. Like, I had a customer early on that had reached out about wanting to sign up for the service. And we did some initial calls and it kind of flaked out, didn't really go anywhere. And they came back and they were like, hey, we really think we need this product. And I said, let me have another call with your schedulers. And they really started talking about their business and the way their business works and this competitive edge that they had because they were doing something very, very unique with their scheduling team. And I just looked at them and I said, man, I'm going to be honest with you. You should not be using our service. Like, in your world, you view this as a competitive edge for this because it was for one customer. I said, you view this as a competitive edge for one customer. That customer views your competitive edge as the way that you're handling this. Could we come help you with some of this? Yes. But should you use that to get rid of your competitive edge? I don't think you should. Maybe you should. You can tell me. That level of honesty earns respect. And that person has told other people about our service since then, right? Like, totally. Hey, like that, the amount of referral business that you get from something as simple as that, right? And I think some people are very short-sighted in the way they want to approach sales, and sales isn't always a short game, right? There's a long game, and being able to be a person of your word and carry through on that and care enough to use your word, I think that pays off. It pays off long term.
It does.
And being true to yourself.
It does, man. So, Tom, as we get ready to wrap up here, would love to see if there are any things that you would tell up and coming sales professionals about their craft, maybe things they can learn earlier, stuff that you know now that you would have told the 19-year-old version of yourself back at TQL scheduling appointments, anything that you would share?
Yeah, I would. So the first thing the main thing that I would tell any sales rep, and I've said this to some people on my team, is you need to be able to answer the question, who are you? Right? Like, there are people that you'll meet in this industry and you'll meet them. And Will, you know people like this. When you meet them, you know them, right? There are other people that when you meet them, you've met a portion of them, but you don't know them, right?
Yeah.
And And I think a lot of that is stemmed from the confidence of knowing who you are, right? And so when you're 19, when you're 20, maybe you don't always know the answer to that question, right? Maybe you've got some sort of foundation that you've built from the way you were raised or whatever it is, but you've got to be able to commit to whatever that foundation is, and not always feel like I have to escape this foundation to become a part of something else. I have had, and I don't mean to keep coming back to this, it just keeps happening, right? I've had so many executives that have said to me, man, it would help your career so much if you would just start playing some golf, man. It would help you so much. And you know what? Every time I'm like, yeah, you don't want me out there. I mean, if I'm going to drive the cart, and I'm going to have a blast driving that cart around.
Yeah.
But what had been viewed so long as some sort of weakness, right, is actually a strength now, because people just know that about me, right? Like, and that's okay. It's just part of my identity. It's nothing bad with golf. I have nothing against it. I'm just not that guy. If I'm going to do something, I want to be able to do a really good job at it. And you know what? I'm not going to be really good at it. So I'd rather just stay away from it. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but the sooner as a person that you know who you are, and the more comfortable you are with yourself, the more comfortable you're going to be in every conversation. The other thing that I always say, at the end of the day, every person that you talk to, they're just a person. You know what? Like, they may have had an issue right before they got on a call with you. They may have had the greatest thing ever happen to you right before you had a call with them, right? Like, people are just people, man. And people have different personalities. And I think the art of being good at sales is being adaptable to how someone else is feeling, right? I think a lot of people get caught up in a script, and they want to recite their script. They know all their points they got to hit. I've jumped on calls, and typically we might be a 30-minute demo, right? Like 30 minute. But I've jumped on a call in the first 2 minutes. I've known this has got to be a 15-minute demo, because there's no way this person's going to last 30 minutes, right?
Yes, sir.
And 15-minute, high energy, boom, push it through. Great, love it. Next step's done, moved on, right? Being able to read the room is a big part of that. And in sales, it's a little different, especially today. We do a lot of the sales like this.
Mm-hmm.
You still got to read the room. You got to figure out how to read the room. And those couple of things I think are really crucial to be able to help build yourself in your career, especially as you start selling more and more to enterprise deals, right?
100%. Tom, this was really, really helpful. I look forward to actually spending some more time. We should do a V2 and JM more on sales, man. But it's a pleasure to see you, and thank you very much for spending some time here on the Journey podcast.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks.